Well, hey there, everybody. Peter Eisler here, and welcome to Web Wednesdays turned into Inside Sailing. I'm at the Eisler Sailing headquarters in San Diego, California, and really appreciate you coming out tonight. The ASA has been working really hard on trying to keep this project going, and Inside Sailing, the name change, is part of the effort. And big thanks to ASA for keeping us going. This episode that we're going to do today is one that was on my list since day one when we conceived of this idea when lockdown started. And finally, we get to do it. So I'm really psyched, and I know you guys are going to enjoy it. As far as the program today, sit back, relax, and have some fun, because that's what I plan on doing. Let me do a quick little introduction of our subject here. Back in New England, on a beautiful little rockline cove in Connecticut, in Short Beach, Connecticut to be exact, is a sailing center for a major powerhouse sailing team, the Yale University sailing team, one of the top-ranked teams in the country for the last decade or so. But back in the day, yours truly lived at that facility, along with both of the guests that we have here tonight. Yik Yik, as we called it, Yale Corinthian Yacht Club, was our home, and we had boats, lots of boats, 420s, lasers, power boats. You ask it. We lived on the water and got to go to school when we did go into school. It's a great facility and a workshop where you could put up a mast and work on your boat in a fully heated workshop all winter long. It's like a perfect place to go to school, right? Well, these guys right here were part of the sailing team, an unruly group, and this is a picture of when we went down to the U.S. Naval Academy and won the offshore national sailing championship in the Naval Academy's Luder Yalls. There's Stan Honey holding the trophy in the center. I'm to his left, is from our perspective, and a great team of guys. We, of course, really fit in with the rest of the competition at that event. Here's another shot of the team when we went back and dominated again at the U.S. Naval Academy. We had a great sailing team, and back then the sailors ran the operation. It was really fun, and the New York Times caught wind of what was going on. At that point, there were three of us that had come in as freshmen that kind of banded together and taken control of the reins at Yik Yik. Really because nobody else wanted to do all the work about pulling the docks in and out every time there was a storm, or working on the boats, or preparing a new fleet. So there's an article I found from the New York Times. It was done way back when we were there in college, with a really grainy picture of Steve Benjamin, a Olympic medalist and Yachtsman of the Year, Stan Honey in the center there. He's always wearing a plaid shirt. Another Sailor of the Year. Both of them won their awards much later than this picture, and yours truly standing on a boat that's about to sink. And there's a picture of Stan. Most of our sailing was done in dinghies. It's a 420 dinghy with his crew, Kara Worthington, at the time. And while we were there, as I said, we got to work on boats. We got to work on one of the coolest projects, and that was the first ever fleet of Club 420s. Coming out of a small little location in Wisconsin, a place called Pewaukee. You might have heard of it because there's a famous sailing manufacturer of parts that is in Pewaukee. That would be Harkin, the sponsor of our show tonight. Thank you very much, and a big shout out to all you folks in Pewaukee. But back in the day when we were there, Peter and Olaf Harkin and his team also had a boat building company, and they were building Olympic level boats for a lot of our friends and our peers in sailing. So when it came time to buy a new fleet for Yik Yik, we got the Harkins through their Vanguard operation to build the first ever Club 420, and that boat went on to do great things, and it's cool to be part of it, and cool to think of the link all the way from back then to now, and big thanks to Harkin for supporting Inside Sailing. We did a lot of things that we couldn't take pictures of while we were at university, probably like you guys. But this one I'm very proud of, which is the first ever Snow and Satisfaction Regatta, a regatta that continues to go on to this day every year. The least known, best regatta in the world. And I'll just leave it at that. But down on the ground, all the way far left, second from the left on the ground, is a girl smiling with Stan's plaid shirt on, and that is his. We didn't girlfriend at the time. We didn't date or call girlfriends, but Sally by then had moved in and become part of the Yik Yik in-house team, and she was part of putting together this first ever Snow and Satisfaction. Now Sally, by this point, was super famous in our eyes. She was, one of the most famous sailors around, because she was a top level dinghy sailor sailing the high performance 505 class. If you pick a class in the late 70s that was the fastest, coolest two-person trapeze dinghy on the planet, it would be the 505. And there's some people that say it's the same, it's true still today. And there's Sally right front row center with a wooden deck and a blue hull reaching along in a picture. It's probably in Europe somewhere. Who knows where it is? No, it's San Francisco Bay. But Sally was a top-level 505 sailor, a sailmaker. She worked for North Sails at the time, and she had already done something that Stan and Benj wouldn't do for years and years to come, which was to win many major international championships and awards. There's what Sally had to wear over her glasses to keep from getting fogged up, because those 5.0s are wet boats. And here's the first of her 2 Sailor of the Year awards that she won. And look who was the male honoree that year. Recognize the Mouth of the South? Yep, that's Ted Turner trying to impress Sally. You think she's impressed? But this girl is living with us on campus at Yik Yik. It was really, really fun. Stan and Sally would go on, of course, to many things, and they're still together today. They got married, and Sally took her sailmaking skills west when they moved out to the Bay Area and started the Spinnaker shop, where she made trapeze harnesses and spinnakers and sails and stuff. But with all that equipment and the connections in the Stanford area, she started another company, the Division of Precision Technical Sewing. And she made stuff that she can't even tell us about today for NASA and all sorts of defense contractors and stuff, with these fancy machines and fancy products that she had, all out of the Spinnaker shop's offices. But to me, I think the most impressive thing that Sally ever did from a business standpoint was when her company got hired by the Grateful Dead, my favorite band, to do the backdrop for their summer tour in the 90s. And we got to go backstage at a Dead show thanks to Sally's connections. All started out from sailmaking. I mean, what an incredible thing. And there's Sally, probably somewhere near the finish line of a Hawaii race. She continues to race today, and her resume is incredible. But we're not here to talk about Sally. We're here to talk about Stan. Now we're going to talk about whatever we want to. Here's a shot of Stan sailing in LA Harbor. Downwind with a nice loose bang, a lot of twists, getting ready to go by the lee. It's very advanced technique there. And very early on, this is pre-college photos, Stan got into navigation in a big way. And in fact, we taught navigation courses to the Yale community while to raise money, make some pocket change while we were on campus. And that's Stan on his family's cruising boat and put a lot of miles. So he came to Yale, like I did, with sort of both a dinghy background and also a big boat background. But his navigation skills have been recognized, are legendary. And now he's at the point where he basically could not only navigate any boat on the planet, but get paid big bucks to do so. And he gets to sail on the best and fastest and most extreme racing boats on the planet if he so chooses. Sally may not allow that. But here's an example of some of the rides that Stan's had. The Comanche, sailing on Roy Disney's Pyewacket. He's a navigator for Roy for many, many years. Again, I'm not going to go through the resume. And there he is winning another award. One of the things that peeves me about Stan is I go around the planet and I get on some pretty good rides, and I've set my share of ocean racing records. But nearly everyone I've ever set has been bested by him. That's him breaking another one of my records. I just can't win. He's been recognized in the Inventors Hall of Fame for that famous first down line, and I consider him the inventor of car navigation. But for us sailors, we were very proud when all our non-sailors friends could understand how tacking and jibing upwind when Stan's company put the Liveline team put together the technology that was seen in the last few America's Cups, graphics on the video, on the water, just like the yellow first down line in football that he invented, that help people understand who's ahead and who's behind. Can you tell I'm proud of my friends? Yeah, I'm super proud. But we're not here to talk about my friends and how proud I am. We're here to talk about them and their cruising on their Cal 40. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friends Stan and Sally.
Hey, Pedro.
Hi, Pedro.
Hey there, how is it?
Thanks for the introduction.
De nada. Hey, so you guys are, you flew west, you actually got on an airplane, you're very, very brave, and you're getting ready to continue your cruising career.
Yep, we left California a couple days ago. We're now in Rhode Island, back to our boat. So we figured we were home long enough, and we paid our dues for the coronavirus. We're doing fine back here.
Well, yeah, looks like it. I'm sure it'll be even better when you get that boat launched. So, guys, the cool thing that Stan and Sally, and when we all lived together, we kept saying, someday we're going to just go off and go cruising to the South Pacific, and that was all of our dream, right? And but life gets in the way, doesn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I think we all agreed on some coordinate in the South Pacific we were going to meet. It's I don't remember what the date was, but I don't think any of us made it there.
So I'm going to go back to screen share mode, and you guys have gotten closer than Benj and I have to achieving that dream. So let's introduce everybody to the Illusion. Take us through how you got this Cal 40, which of course is a 1960s design, early fiberglass sloop. It was a production boat, a very successful racer in its day.
We'd sailed 5-0s for a couple of decades and decided it was time to go cruising. And I had raced on Cal 40s for years growing up as a kid in LA Yacht Club. George Griffith, the guy that came up with the concept, and Bill Lapworth, the guy that designed the boat, they were all members of LA Yacht Club, and there was tons of Cal 40s at LA Yacht Club. And so when we decided to buy a cruising boat, we bought one. The funny thing that happened, though, that was in 1988, is that old habits die hard. And so after we bought Illusion, we fixed her up, got her in the water, and then all we did was race her for probably the next 10 years. I think we did 5 Hawaii races, all the West Coast Ocean races, and found that Cal 40s are still very competitive under rating rules that are fair to a diverse set of boats like the ORR rule is.
Cool. So I remember when you first got the boat and looking through a photo album with you and pictures that look like this, the gunshots through the hull. This is when you first stepped foot on Illusion, right?
Yeah, the boat was in this state when legendary sailors like Skip Allen would come by and they'd look at the boat and they'd look at us and they'd say, "You're crazy." But yeah, that was the boat. We found her in Ron's reef, Ron Moore's yard in Santa Cruz. She was close enough to the freeway so that she'd been collecting bullet holes. People had been shooting at her as they drove by. She had no engine. There were some homeless people living in her. And we didn't have to pay a lot of money to get the boat. And we didn't discover till much, much later that the boat had originally been owned by Mosbacher and Montesano. So it was a famous and very successful East Coast boat.
Wow.
It was a little daunting looking at that boat, though, and the bilge was full of oil, and there were fleas and completely exploded cans of unknown stuff down below. So it was a fair amount of work.
Well, it's a good thing that I taught you how to work with fiberglass and repair boats so that you were able to fix all the blisters and caulk the seams and turn the boat from something that looks like this to post all that work.
Yeah, that's Illusion still at Ron's Reef, just before the crane came to take her out of there and put her on a truck.
It was a lot of work, but we were happy we did it.
Now, you guys have a really cool website, which is totally non-commercial, which is very cool. And you have a big section in it on the restoration of the boat. And we will share that link to everybody in the course later. So, you know, lots of details. You know, I know that you guys love working on boats almost as much as anybody we know and are good at it. And what you were saying, like every piece of metal on the deck is new. Every piece of teak there was replaced. Yeah,
the deck was absolutely bare. So we took off everything, all the handrails, tow rails, you know, stanchions, pulpits, you know, all of the fittings. So there's not a single bit of metal on deck that was there when we bought the boat. And then when we had the deck stripped, we re-glassed the hull to deck joints. And Cal 40s and a lot of the early Jensen boats, you know, they leaked through the hull to deck joint because it was an inward turning flange with a deck bolted on top with just sort of some wet mat in between. And so we tapered the deck and then ran, you know, X-mat and epoxy all the way around. Made the boat a lot stiffer and made it absolutely dry down below. And then we replaced the old Jensen hatches with the Lumar waterproof hatches. So it's really nice to have a boat that's, you know, as watertight as we've grown to expect with modern boats.
Very, very impressive. I can't wait to go cruising on it. Okay, so the boat gets launched, and this is you're about ready to go cruising at this point, right? Oh, there's the interior.
We launched. We bought the boat in '88. We got it fixed up, and then in '90 we did the double-handed Pacific Cup, and that was only the fourth time we'd ever hoisted the main. We took off double-handed and raced in the Pacific Cup. It was, you know, they say you're supposed to be prepared for these things. Well, the boat was prepared, and I'd done a bunch of Hawaii races before, but I don't think we wouldn't recommend that approach.
I think I finished the third of our 3 Spinnakers like the night before the start, so it was pretty last minute. And we had a brand new Autopilot that Stan had just put together, and I hadn't raced offshore shorthanded, and so it was definitely a learning experience, being double-handing for the first time and going to Hawaii. But it all worked out.
Well, there's some cool pictures of the Illusion's second racing career. First one with the Mossbacker and Busy.
So this is coming under the Golden Gate on the way back from a Farallon's race. And this is just before you get to the South Tower Demon. So in about another minute, you get this huge gust shift right at the South Tower.
Drone footage. Beautiful. Look at there's one of the replacement hatches. So nothing leaks anymore, right?
Nope.
Correct.
Even after, we're talking 32 years later?
Yep, we replaced all the port lights too, and all the port holes. So yeah, everything's new and it all works.
So this was the 2003 Transpac at the finish. So that's the finish of the Transpac. We did it fully crewed with a crew of 4. So it was Sally and me, and then Skip Allen and John Andron. And Skip and John had both won the Transpac in Cal 40s back in the 60s. So it was fun having them on our full crew of 4. And that's crossing the bay just after Cocoa Head. And we had the boat all, you know, properly trimmed and everything was aligned. And then we get this huge gust out of Cocoa Head. I think it was blowing over 30. And the boat just came up onto a plane. And it was an amazing experience. Cal 40s surf all the time, but I think that's the first time we've ever planed.
Yeah, that looks like some of those classic photos of the Cal 40s from back in the 60s when they first came out and were being touted as being a super high performance boat. But They're beautiful, aren't they? They're beautiful boats. And now, finally, after how many years of talking about it and racing, do you finally set the course?
Yeah, 2014, we actually went under the Golden Gate and headed south, turned left and headed south.
We liked Cortez so much, we got stuck there for a year we didn't expect. So we spent 2 years there.
Yep.
And then another year on the Gold Coast of Mexico, between the Sea of Cortez and, kind of Acapulco, I guess.
Right. And yeah, here's a great shot of Sally leaving you behind, Stan, leaving up from under the Golden Gate Bridge. Finally.
In the picture.
So back to, we talked about this before, but I know you visited us in San Diego on the way south.
Yep.
This adventure from San Francisco, at this point, as you're at this point right here, where are you going?
On the way down the California coast, we stopped basically everywhere. So I think our first stop was what? Santa Cruz or Santa Cruz? Half Moon Bay. Yeah, so we probably made 15 stops on the way down to San Diego, but we stopped where you could. So I think
Bay, Santa Cruz, Monterey, Lost Landing, the island, Channel Islands.
Yeah, San Luis Obispo in there.
Yeah.
Then the little place just around Point Conception, and then San Miguel.
San Miguel.
We went to San Miguel, and they've got great holding there, which is terrific because it blows 40 all night. So
we tested out our new anchor, our new Rockna anchor, and we were very happy that it held because there were a bunch of rocks behind us, downwind of us.
It just howls. I mean, we've all raced around San Miguel Island, but this is the first time I've ever stopped there.
Wow. Island of the Blue Dolphins. So by the time you get to San Diego, you're not planning on being in Newport, Rhode Island in 2020 at that point, are you? Your destination was somewhere different.
We were just heading south, and we were having every week we'd have a discussion about whether we would go to the Marquesas or whether we go down the coast or whether and how much other stuff we had to do, because we were, as we told you, commuter cruising. So we couldn't just leave. We had to go back and take care of all the other things we were involved in. So we would generally go off for a month or two and then leave the boat somewhere. And so in the end, it seemed to make more sense, given our total lifestyle, to head down the coast so that we would be within range of airports so we could get back home rather than heading off the Marquesas.
And that was the funny thing we discovered about, commuter cruising, is that there's lots of marinas that are perfectly safe places to leave your boat and cheaper than, a slip in Francisco, airplane route. And so, it occurred to us, on our cruise that you see all of these boats in the US, in their slips most of the time. People ought to just, get on with it. And then instead of leaving it in the marina at home, leave it in the marina wherever they happen to be, and then fly home. And then whenever they have, a month or a few weeks, go to the boat and take another short passage. Well, yes.
No bad experiences. You can just lock the boat up and tie it up into the slip or haul it out to get some work done and see it in a few months, huh?
There were a couple of times when we left the boat in La Paz for 2 hurricane seasons. We had some people watching the boat for us, so that they would, double up the dock lines and make sure the canvas was off if there was a hurricane coming through, and be in touch with us the whole time.
So this looks like a shot from, could be going down the Baja coast here.
Actually, I think that's the Cuban flag. I think that's when we're actually hoisting our flag going up into Cuba.
A quick tease of the future to come.
Yeah. And then we had a tiny dinghy. We'll get into talking about our theory about keeping the decks clean on our boat. We have an inflatable dinghy, a little Avon Red Crest, and a
2 horsepower.
2 horsepower outboard.
That's a lot of engine there, Sam.
We used to have a 1.5. The one that I grew up with as a kid, only Sally didn't like it, so she chucked it over.
I did not. That's another story. But we do try to keep everything clean. So the dinghy goes down below when we're on passage. We never tow it behind us. We always keep the decks as clean as possible.
And for long passages, we'll put the outboard down below too. But for just short gunk holing, we'll hang the outboard off the back. That's a booby, a blue-footed booby.
So one of our favorite places in the Sea of Cortez is Isla Isabel. That's just west of Banderas Bay, northwest of Banderas Bay. We actually went there twice because it's they call it the Galapagos of Mexico. It has zillions of boobies and frigate birds and iguanas. So many that it's hard to walk around there without stepping on them because they don't worry about you at all because there's no predators there for them.
So you just picked one up and brought him out to the boat?
He just flew out. He must have thought we had something good to eat.
You made a good impression on him. Okay.
Sea of Cortez.
So
Right.
one of the things we did when we set the boat up, since we'd been sailing dinghies for so long and we knew we wanted to sail shorthanded, was we kind of set up the boat like a dinghy. So there was steering at the helm. I have the traveler and the main sheet and the after guy and the fore guy all kind of within reach while I'm holding onto the tiller. So so I can handle the back of the boat, and then we've got all the halyards up at the mast, so Stan can handle the front of the boat, and it works out pretty well.
You make Stan do the bow?
I do. There are times when we're both up there.
What kind of autopilot do you have?
It's a Spectra from Alpha Marine. And then I wrote a program that runs on a PC that controls it so that it'll sail our optimums from the polars. So it'll bear off in the puffs and come up in the lulls and, follow in shifts. So it's really good. All of the Hawaii races we've done, it's never rounded up and it's never rounded down. It's never jibed. And so it steers in the daytime. It doesn't steer quite as well as Sally steers because she can see the waves. But at night, it steers absolutely as well as any human. And it never, ever gets groggy, and it never makes a blunder. So it's been a secret weapon.
Wow. How much do you use it when you're cruising?
Tons.
A lot.
Yeah, and we found racing. I did the single-handed race once in the boat and won the single-handed race and set the record for the race. And then Sally and I raced the boat double-handed 2 other times. Mm-hmm. And one of those other times we raced the Pacific Cup double-handed, and we were first in fleet. So we beat all the fully crewed boats. And the interesting thing was that double-handed, the boat's about 10% lighter. So it makes it faster for a downwind race. And then with the autopilot steering really well, then Sally and I steered very little, and we could concentrate on trimming and aggressively sailing the boat. So I think we jibed 50 times that race, and we jibed 15 times one night. It was one of those really shifty nights, 2/3 of the way through the race. And I think Sally was a little bit edgy about that by morning. So what the roll call, Sally checked it as the jibing fools on Illusion. The position, we'd gained 25 miles that night. So she forgot.
Yeah, of course, the longer the race is, the more weight you save for every person you leave ashore because all the stuff. And do you have a water maker, or are you bringing all your water?
For double-handed like that, we just bring the water because there's not much. But we do have a water maker that we've used for cruising, and that's been great.
Okay, so after at some point, it looks like you've decided not to go to the Marquesas because here we are in southern Mexico, where And we won't talk about Costa Rica for reasons that nobody in this room needs to know about. We'll just like focus right up in that nice little left turn into the bay there and headed to Panama. And you know, it's interesting, you know, probably until you go cruising there. I know, Stan, you've done it before, but to really look at the map and realize how many, you know, I'm pretty zoomed in on the planet right here and how many different countries there are right in this little section right here.
So this is in the Las Perlas Islands, which is in the Bay of Panama, and at the southernmost edge, yeah, right there, the southernmost edge of the Las Perlas Islands, we ran across a submarine. It was a strange sub because it looked modern sub with a conning tower and a pressure hull, but it was made out of riveted iron, which is sort of Civil War construction. And then we actually were able to find information about it on Wikipedia. And it turns out it was a sub that was built for oyster farming. For pearls.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand about the bends, and it was a pressurized sub, and the crew kept dying. And so the business didn't work. And eventually the guy that invented it and built it died, and he died of the bends. And so then they just ran it up in the beach, and it's been there ever since like the 1860s. But it was actually fun to see something that old just where it was left, you know, in the 1860s. You know, we all go to maritime museums and see stuff that's all fixed up, but it was really fun to see something that was, you know, just kind of been sitting there on the beach the whole time.
Stan actually climbed inside of it, which was a little spooky. You could barely fit inside it, and it was all rusty and had very sharp edges. But it was fun to see it. We actually went the night before, and it was almost underwater. The tides were, you know, pretty high they're like 18-foot tides on the Pacific side of the Panama Canal. So you can see illusion in the background there. We spent the night off in the islands and then went back at reasonable tide so that we could actually wander around it.
Incredible. That's like the Monitor and the Merrimack time period, isn't it? Or
Yeah, it is.
All right, so we're one of the things that I wanted you guys to share, because you have so much experience, obviously, in racing, but Sally, you're a sailmaker, and both of you have, you know, before I even knew you, you'd done many offshore miles. But talk a little bit about some of the sailing techniques and sail tips that you have.
Well, this shows our reef jib. You can see the jib has 2 tacks and 2 clews. The reefable tack is 4 foot above the normal tack, and the clew is 7 feet above the normal clew. And you can see here the reef zipped in so that we can actually, you know, have one sail that's both a 125 when it's unreefed and 100% when it's reefed. And it saves room down below to have the one sail. You can also see that we're diehards with Hanks. In fact, we're just about to put a roller furler on our jib. We haven't ever sailed with a roller furler, so we've always had Hanks. And we think that that's a smart way when you're shorthanded, because if you need to douse the jib, you can't. If you have to, you can just drop the halyard and have it come down, and it won't go anywhere. But that's so that sail has done really good duty for us. There it is unreefed, so you can see the Spinnaker, the zipper running across it.
So there's 2 zippers. There's a pair of blue, one on each side, and a pair of white on each side. So you can reef the jib, rolling it from either side. So when we reef it, we just temporarily lower it, pull the clew forward, roll it up, put on the new tack, the new clew, and then rehoist it. But you can always, you know, roll it away from you, whichever side you happen to be sitting on.
But that's a time when we're both on the foredeck. So I do go on the foredeck every once in a while.
Who's at the front of the foredeck? So this is, and so the water, because it's totally zipped up in its little zipper pocket right there, it's not going to collect a lot of water or anything, is it?
Right. We used to, in fact, the first time we did it, we just had sail ties. And we quickly realized that that wasn't a good idea because it did scoop up a lot of water.
Okay, and what about some Spinnaker tips here?
So this is coming back from the light bucket in San Francisco. It was obviously a nice windy race. You can see that we have an outgrabber on the clew of the Spinnaker, and that pulls the foot of the Spinnaker out along the boom, along the, so it's sheeted out midway along the boom, which opens up the foot of the Spinnaker and allows you to sail in heavier wind on a relatively close reach.
It's a technique that all of us old timers, including you, Pedro, remember well, but it's sort of been lost in the newer generations, but it's still legal. And it's, you know, Rule 50.3 in the Racing Rules of Sailing specifically permit this. But a lot of people see us do it and then they, you know, tell us that we're breaking the rules, but we're not. But you can see it, you pull the Spinnaker sheet out and then you trim it partway out the boom. And when you're on a reach, so the leech to the Spinnaker doesn't hook in. So you get more drive and less heeling moment. And then when you run and it's really windy, like that picture of the finish of the Transpac, it makes the foot of the Spinnaker quite flat. And that foot of the Spinnaker, then when it's flat, it acts like a shear panel. And then the top of the Spinnaker can't, that one. The top of the Spinnaker can't swing back and forth because the foot is held out quite flat. So you're able to stabilize the Spinnaker without tightening the leech. And you don't want to tighten the leech because if you were to tighten the leech, then you generate a lot of heeling moment very quickly if you head up. So it's...
The interesting thing being, or one of the things was you can't just have an out grabber and then lead it back to the transom or to where the normal Spinnaker sheet would go, because as you pointed out, then the main would oversheet itself just to push in. So you have to go do this push me pull you and do these 90-degree turns.
Yeah, so we end up using the guy on each side, which simplifies things when you're shorthanded, and you don't need lazy sheets and guys when you're shorthanded, because if it's windy, we just do a sock jibe. And if it's not windy, we do a dip pull, but you don't need lazy guys in order to do it. So that just simplifies things.
And up here at the top of, this is the finish of the Transpac, I can tell almost, you might be on the finish line there. We're not.
That's Diamond Head, and that's a Spinnaker sock. So we almost always, whenever we're shorthanded, we always use the sock. We use that both it and dousing it, and then as Stan said, if it's windy, we'll do a sock jibe and pull the sock down at least halfway, usually all the way, to do our jibe.
So when it's windy and we do a sock jibe, that means you're jibing the main in big breeze, bald-headed. So it's like jibing a fin dinghy.
Yeah.
So it comes ripping across. So as a result of that, we have a nylon traveler line. So when the boom wings across and hits the other side, the traveler goes sprawling, and and we also have really, really heavy gooseneck, a gooseneck that looks like it would be off of Santa Cruz 70. And so that's sort of how we jibe. No matter how windy, if it's really windy, we'll sock the Spinnaker. So that's going to make the bald-headed jibe a real slam when the thing goes across.
And everybody was floored to see you sailing on Hahnemann in the J class a couple of years ago on the Worlds, unveiling the Spinnaker sock on full-on. Forget about shorthanded. You had 30 crew, including Joey Finelli up there, and you're still using a sock. What about Sally? Were there some details here as well?
Yeah, so this is finishing the Transpac in 2005. I was sailing with Melinda Erklins and Liz Bayless and Charlie Arms. And what you can see the outgrabber there, pulled, and it's not pulled all the way out, just enough to kind of stabilize the kite. It was only blowing 25 or something. It wasn't super windy. And then you can also see that bag that's hanging down underneath the Spinnaker along at the forestay, the little white bag. That is for the Spinnaker.
That's Stan's dinner, right?
Stan's dinner. Stan's not on board. So that's for a spinnaker net that we use, especially in light air, that keeps the spinnaker from wrapping around the forestay. So it's basically a skeleton jib, just with a luff and a leech and 3 horizontal webbing strips that if the spinnaker gets backwinded, or especially if it's light air, if the spinnaker starts to furl around the forestay, it keeps it on the right side. What else do we have there? I think that's it. We did twin pole drives on that Transpac. That's the only time we've done twin pole drives, but it worked quite well for the girls.
Now I'm monitoring the Q&A and stuff, and I see a bit of heckling going on from Pewaukee. And in fact, we're just looking at these downwind pictures, and the big chief Peter Harkin was asking if the whole trip down Mexico, was it all downwind?
It was. I think it was. Yeah, we had a nice runs. We carried the kite. I mean, we stopped a couple of places on the way down Baja, but we carried the kite almost the whole way. And then once you get south of, Zihuatanejo down there, that gets really light. And so there's invariably you end up with some motor sailing, but we had nice days of sailing as well.
Yeah.
And I think he picked up on your need, the fact that you guys are going a little bit more cruising oriented now, which is kind of disappointing. The Hanks are going away, so I think there might be an offer for the family price on a new furler and one of the new Harkin furlers. So you might want to follow up on that. Just saying.
We've already we have a new Harkin furler. We just haven't put it on yet.
So the Panama Canal, Stan, your second time through?
Actually, it was my third time. We went back and forth through, the year I took off from Yale. Right. And this is sort of my third time through.
Illusion looks very small next to this boat here, though. This is an AIS screenshot. And, it's like when you go around Cape Horn, you want to get the selfie of you standing with Cape Horn in the background. I guess when you go through the Panama Canal, you want the selfie of AIS going through with a super tanker or something.
We felt pretty small.
Yeah, this time through it was interesting. We had the classic canal passage where we went center channel, center lock. So we're tending our 4 lines to either side. The easiest way to make it through is you side tie to a tug or a workboat that happens to be going through, and then it's easy. But this was the first time I had to actually go center chamber. And the first lock where they're first dumping the fresh water into the salt water, it's really turbulent. And it was pretty exciting.
It's great. We had 4 friends come join us. And so each of us was on a line, 2 at the bow and 2 at the stern, handling the lines.
So we have a little video here. We'll see if we can operate it. Illusion is just, the hull's out of frame. We can see its mast in the lower left here. And let's hit play and see if you guys can see if anything is happening. Whoa.
Water came in, then they let us out.
There we go.
So I guess the Atlantic is higher than the Pacific, huh?
Well, the Pacific is hugely tidal. So it's coming up and down, probably 25 feet. And then the Caribbean side is almost no tide at all. And then the Gatun Lake, which you're going through, is about 100 feet up?
Yeah.
So you have to go through 3 locks to get up to Gatun Lake, and then you go across Gatun Lake, which is gorgeous, and it's all fresh water, and then 3 locks to go back again.
All right, so that is a cool video. You have your canopy on. They let you wear the canopy while you're going through?
They asked us to. You have to have an agent with you. They don't let you go through on your own. You have a Panama agent. And they have requirements. You have to feed them, you have to keep them, give them water, and you have to have a sunshade. It was pretty hot.
Wow.
But we use that sunshade a lot. It also can convert to a tent. So we leave it, when we leave the boat in the marina, the poles out and tent it down.
So you guys are still, at this point, you're through the canal and you're still doing your commuter cruising where you go away for big chunks of time and do everything else you do in life.
Yep.
And we left the boat for one summer in the Shelter Bay Marina, which is on the Caribbean side of the canal. And it's a fabulous little marina harbor, perfectly safe. It's an old US Navy base. And then so just before going to Shelter Bay, we went to spend a week or two in Bocas del Toro, which is just west of the canal. And then when we got back down to the boat, we had a really nice beat to Portobello and then to the San Blas, you know, windy upwind sailing in the trades. And then spent a couple of weeks in the San Blas.
Mm-hmm.
How far is that? That's that little leg from the canal entrance to the San Blas Island. But for those of you that were on a previous edition of Web Wednesdays, we had Charlie and Liz Ogletree, and they had some great stories and had some good pictures of the molas, the girls with the molas and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, crystal clear water. Islands, the Kuna Indians, you know, they sort of run their own program there. And as far as they're concerned, you know, they're a sovereign area. And they make the molas and, you know, they'll come by in the dugout canoes and it's all very cool. I had the pleasure to be there in the 70s when I took a year off from Yale and went sailing there with some friends. And there's some differences and there's some similarities. In the 70s, it was really hard because there's terrible charts and there was, you know, there's no electronic navigation. It was all celestial. So you could only move a boat around noon where you could see, you know, the depth. And there was only 3 cruising boats we saw the entire month we spent in the San Blas. Whereas now that there's good charts, I think there's probably hundreds of cruising boats scattered around the San Blas. But the Indians run the program and they haven't let it go bad. So the islands, other than the fact that there's tons of plastic on the beach, which is really discouraging. But other than that, the islands are as beautiful as they ever were.
Lots of life in the water. So the snorkeling is gorgeous.
You broke up for a second there. What is there tons of on the beach?
Plastic. Yeah, it's that was the biggest change I remember from the 70s. Is in the 70s, it was just idyllic. Now it's idyllic, but there's plastic everywhere, plastic bottles and stuff.
It's downwind of the whole Caribbean, so everything that goes in the water ends up there.
It is downwind at the end of the Caribbean, that's for sure. All right, so from the San Blas, you're heading up to Providencia, and you finally decided at this point, is the 2020 Bermuda race on the target, or are you still just commuter cruising?
Just about. Well, I think this is just about when we decided.
Yeah. You guys don't like to commit, do you? That's why it took so long for you to get married, probably.
It did take a long time. But some of the, you can see some of the safety issues, equipment we have here. You can see our jack lines, webbing running along the side deck. And we have our Type 4 ready to deploy to toss in the water if we need to. And so we were pretty careful with the safety gear. We wore our harnesses, our inflatable life jacket harnesses, and we always clipped in whenever we were, especially when we were on deck alone or at night, but whenever it got rough. We have a reef in the main here too, it looks like.
Yep. Now, I'll just interject, you know, for those of you that didn't do the pre-course homework and didn't read Sally's resume, which takes about a year, she's been on the U.S. Sailing Safety at Sea Committee for almost a decade, and she's currently the chair of that committee and has done a lot of work at safety at sea. So it's good to know that Stan's in good hands when he goes offshore. There's the inflatable life jacket, Stan?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a Mustang, and we carry the Yachtsman overboard beacons.
What would
we have a John buoy and the life sling and the whole thing.
And that's our new 3DI mainsail.
Beautiful. It's yellow though, it's not black.
No. It's the raw. And there you can see our fine adjust on the main sheet. So we don't have a winch on the main sheet. We have a gross adjust, the purple is the gross, and then the blue is a fine adjust.
So there's a 6-to-1 and a 24-to-1.
Yes, it is. You'd think it was a catamaran.
So Stan can get it in all the way. When Liz and Min and Charlie were sailing to Hawaii, we actually led the main sheet to wind. We were kind of wimpier than Stan.
Right. So which parts do you grab when you pump it when you go downwind, Sally?
The whole, just like a 5-0, grab all of the blue part.
If somebody did go in the water, what do you have in terms of the tracker? Do you have AIS up on deck?
Yeah. Well, we have a an AIS transponder. We can set it up to where we get the range and bearing on deck to the beacon, or if the beacon doesn't turn on, of course, we get a range and bearing to where you push the man overboard button.
Right.
And then our current practice, it's evolved through the years, is to the person who's remains on the boat takes all the sails down and takes their time. Because if they panic and screw it up and get a line in the prop or get the spinnaker tangled in the rig, then the person in the water is in real trouble. So the person on board the boat has to, take their time and do things properly. And then we're assuming you've got the AIS and you can find the person. Then you motor back to the person, deploy the life sling, drag the life sling past them until the person has the life sling. And then we just let the boat drift, slowly towing, drift, with the helm hard over, slowly towing the person in the water. And then we do what you're used to, that we all do on the maxis. Then you clip a halyard around the line that's going to the life sling so that the halyard shackle can slide out on the life sling line. And then you hoist up a halyard, so you're pulling the person up and into the boat on a 1-to-2 disadvantage. But the nice thing about that approach is by the time the person gets close to the boat, they're being pulled up enough to where the boat can't drift over them. And that's why, we've been doing that on Volvos and Maxis for a decade now.
Have you ever had a man overboard on the Illusion?
We have not. Only trials. We have not. We're pretty careful.
Safety first. Cool. And here she is today, right?
Yep, that was this afternoon.
All ready to go in the Newport to Bermuda race. You guys had you had sail, and taking off all your cruising gear and lighting the boat all up, and
yeah. So that's why we actually went to the furlers, because our crew for the Bermuda race was, Carl Buchan, the Olympic Jesberg, the Belgian champion, who happened to have a Ford with a brand new 3DI jibs, and Jonathan Livingston. And so we were going to borrow Jesberg's 3DI jibs, but we needed a stuff luff. And we have always used Hanks. So that's why we decided, oh shit, if we're going to put a luff groove anyway, might as well try out a furler and see what that's like. So that's what got into the furler program, is so that we would have a luff groove to carry Jesberg's jibs. But then, in the boat last fall, before we put the boat away, we took off all the cruising gear. We took off the heater and the Dodger and the
door aids that you see there.
The door aids were off.
They're back on now.
Autopilot was off. All the heavy gear, the anchor windlass was off. So the boat was back to her, full race trim. And we were going to take the Bermuda race very seriously. And then when that canceled, now we have a job of putting all the crap back on. And we're going to head down east to Maine.
But it's fun. The boat's in better shape now than she was. So it's all good.
She looks beautiful. She's happy that you bought her out of Ron's Reef.
Yep. We're happy too.
So we got time for a couple questions, and I think Stan and Sally offered to take a look at some of the other ones later and maybe post them online. But I'm just gonna go bold here and just open up the Q&A room and see what you guys came up with. Hey, here's a good one. How little did you pay for Illusion when it was in that condition with gunshot holes in it and
We
bungs
probably
in
paid
it?
too much, but we paid 20.
And then there was a follow-up about money too. Everything's about money today. What was how long did it take for that first iteration of restoration from the black boat to the white boat picture? And roughly what was your budget?
It took us 2 years almost to the day from when we bought the boat to when we started the Pacific Cup. And during that 2 years, we did all of the important structural stuff, reglassed all the bulkheads, glassed the hull to deck joint, got a new rigging. We started the original rig.
Original mast.
Original mast. There was no boom, so we had to get a new boom for the boat. But yeah, it took us 2 years, and the boat was pretty basic. I mean, everything was there as a sailboat, but we didn't have any of the cruising gear on it.
We have no idea. We don't think about how much it cost.
What were maybe pick the one or two biggest challenges and one or two best lessons you've learned in this whole experience with Illusion?
I think one thing that we really appreciated was when we went cruising, we had raced the boat a lot, 5 times to Hawaii and back, done probably 20 Farallones races and light bucket races, and many of a lot of breeze, as you find in San Francisco. So we'd gotten to where, we were very competitive and, lots of breeze off San Francisco double-handed. And so then when we went cruising, it was just a cakewalk because, the boat was well rigged, it was easy to shorten sail. We had all the right sheet leads. And so Illusion was, easy to shorten sail and performed very well, because we were so used to racing in a ton of breeze. And so then we found ourselves, in the cruising community, they kind of thought we were nuts because it'd be blowing 23 or 4 or 5 and it's upwind to Portobello and it's like, cool, and off we go, with the reef main and the, 100% jib and having a beautiful time. And the same thing downwind. We're used to carrying the kite in a lot of breeze and with a outgrabber and all that, things balanced and the boat's super stable and the pilots got it under control. So the sailing part was just, a cakewalk for us. And then a lot of the cruisers that we'd run across, they tend to accumulate stuff on the back of the boat. So they got a big arch and they got radar and solar panels and windows and barbecues and dinghies, davits, and then they kind of wonder why the boat won't go upwind. And we've resisted that. So, and there's trade-offs. We have a little tiny, 8-ton dinghy that, you blow up and we store it down below. And when we're going offshore, the outboard goes down below. But yet when we're in Cortez and there's, sea running into the beach, we can't go, planing into the beach the way everybody likes to. So what we do is we take the dinghy off, we take the motor off the dinghy, and then we row into the beach most of the way, and then we swim the rest of the way. But you still get there.
And you just tow that, and you just make sure the dinghy doesn't surf in over the top of you.
Yeah.
It's a race. It's a race.
It's just a rubber boat. It's an Avon Red Cross. So.
Yeah.
So there are trade-offs to the approach we have because we have a 2 horsepower outboard and a little rubber boat that that can't plane, but nevertheless, as a result, when we're sailing Illusion, there's nothing on deck, and that's just a different set of values for the trade-offs. But we really enjoy the sailing part.
Well, here's a little tip. Where you're headed up there and down east in Maine, I don't know if you're going to be wanting to be jumping in the water just to swim ashore every time.
I've got headaches swimming in Maine. I know how cold it can get.
Yeah, well, after Maine, do you have any idea about any chance of going across the pond?
Maybe up through the St. Lawrence Seaway to the Great Lakes, maybe back down, maybe we don't know. It's a long way.
I've been trying to convince Sally we should go across the pond because I hear that's where they keep the scotch over there.
Yeah, we can go on the Scotch. I'll go on that cruise with you.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, we've reached the top of the hour. Stan and Sally, thank you so much for joining us
Our
here
pleasure.
tonight. I think there's going to be a door prize for you if I notice what's going on in the chat room, but you never know. But you know, every time we get together, it's always fun, and this was a selfish way for me to catch up on what's been going on and the fun part of your life, which is going cruising and hanging out together. And you know, I know that you have a lot more fans now in the ASA world after having done this, and I'm sorry about the Q&A that we're going to be sending you. It's going to be really long. There's a lot of questions about electronics, Stan, but I went easy on you, and I'll just ask you one last one. So about the electronics on the boat, what sort of sound system do you have, and what kind of music do you listen to?
Grateful Dead.
Always the Grateful Dead, of course. We have a little Bluetooth amplifier for the electrical engineers. It's Class B, so it's really efficient. And then that nice speaker sound, the music sounds great.
Play from our phones.
Yeah.
Just don't get them wet. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And fair winds to the illusion when you finally get her splashed and headed up down east. And maybe we'll see you back there.
Thank you, Pedro. It's been fun.
Thank you.
All right. And to everybody else who joined us tonight, including that crowd from Pewaukee, hey, thanks for joining us on episode 1 of our newly named Inside Sailing. It was a lot of fun, and I was very proud to be able to share it with you. Until next time, I'm Peter Eisler, and I'll just say thanks to everybody for showing up. Thanks to Harkin and Stan and Sally. We'll see you next time on Inside Sailing.